Richard Heinberg is a senior fellow at the Post-Carbon Institute and the author most recently of The End of Growth. Richard, the end of growth. I keep being told every time I look at a newspaper or look at the news that growth is returning. Yeehaw. It's not.
Well, we are seeing growth at the top of the economic pyramid, growth for the 1%, if you will, but for everybody else, it's really not happening. And I think what is going on is that we are hitting fundamental limits that are, inexorable. Limits to energy. It's not as though all of our energy supplies are running out, but they're subject to the low-hanging fruit principle. In other words, we've used the easily accessed cheap oil, and what's left is going to be harder to get, more expensive, more environmentally problematic. The same thing with our financial system. We've reached limits to debt. It's not as though we can continue borrowing more and more money, either as households or governments, in order to finance all the things we'd like to have, because ultimately that has to be paid back or else the debt gets defaulted upon. We've also reached limits with regard to what the environment can absorb, because as we expand our industrial processes, the environment has to absorb more and more CO2, more and more pollutants of various kinds, and so on. And the costs of weird weather and industrial accidents are increasing exponentially. So you combine these three things together: limits to debt, limits to energy, and limits to the environment's ability to absorb. And you see pretty quickly we're reaching a kind of dead end to the process of constant economic growth that we're always being told is our birthright.
But how do I know you're not just like the sky is falling, Chicken Littlers of a century ago?
Right. Well, these limits are showing up in real time. And we're seeing slowing economic growth around the world, in Europe, in the US, even in China. And a moment's thought would show that growth can't go on forever anyway. I mean, think of a newborn hamster. It doubles its body weight every week. Well, what would happen if it continued doubling its body weight every week for one whole year? 52 doublings. We'd have a 9 billion ton hamster. Well, that's what's happening. That's what has been happening with China. China's been growing its economy at 10% per year. That's a doubling time of 7 years. So after 7 years, China's economy is twice as big. After 14 years, it's 4 times as big. After 21 years, it's 8 times as big. That can't go on forever. And if you look at China's coal supplies, if you look at China's environment, it's pretty clear that China's economy can't even probably double one more time. So within this decade, we're going to be seeing profound economic changes around the world.
So is this a good thing or a bad thing, the end of growth?
Well, ultimately it's a good thing, because we have to live within nature's limits. We have to live within the Earth's ability to provide renewable and non-renewable resources. However, over the short run, it's going to mean a lot of difficulties in adaptation, because we've created financial systems that depend upon interest and returns on investments, which in turn depend upon economic growth.
Can we live without growth?
Well, of course we can live without growth. We lived without economic growth for thousands of years. Really, the economic growth that we're talking about right now, GDP growth, is mostly an artifact of the past few decades. Just an eye blink of time in human history. Now, if we can't continue increasing our rate of consumption of Earth's resources, can we nevertheless make life better for people? Of course we can. We can improve the quality of our governance. We can improve the quality of our community lives. We can share more. We can improve the artistry of our built environment without increasing the rate at which we're extracting and consuming resources.